Hey there, my name is John Biethan. We're back again with Chris Chase, and as usual, Chris is bringing a special guest on. And as usual, I'm sure it'll be like a really, really fun story. We're going to have a fun time because we here believe that if it's not fun, we're not doing it. So Chris,
Okay.
take it away.
Well, John, I appreciate you asking me to do this again. I had a really good time with Carrot Odds and just telling that story. And I've got a lot of emails and I had a lot of phone calls and people reacting to how inspiring Kara's story was, because she was someone who had to shut down 2 locations and then went virtual with her business and booked 115 appointments. I just talked to her, I think yesterday or the day before, and she did 266 hours in virtual business.
Nice.
So she's, what is that, doubled since we talked to her last. So it's amazing.
And that was like a week ago, right?
Yeah, it's amazing. And so, and she's honestly, she's kind of like an angel right now. She's my client, but she's like a guardian angel. I mean, I talk to her, I feel inspired. She's pumped up. She's like, what can we do? She's so motivated. Her spirit is just, it's amazing. I just can't say enough about her. But when I was talking to you, John, because we got, a lot of traction from that and it seemed to touch people, that's what I care about. I want to touch people. I want to tell stories. I want to talk about what we can do, because we're going through a crazy time right now. And who came to my mind, top of mind, was Jesse. As soon as I literally was done talking with Kara and you, John, Jesse crossed my mind. And I reached out to him and said, hey, man, something special just happened, something that kind of fits your brand and who you are and how you operate and what you do. I've been watching Jesse for a long time do things that are unique, and he's a pioneer in a lot of ways of what he does, although he has reached out and reached the mentorship of some pretty amazing people as well. And we all do that. We learn as we go, and we just try to get better every day. But I reached out to Jesse and I said, hey, because Jesse and I have worked together for a long time, on the real estate side, on the branding side. We've utilized each other's services quite a bit, but we have a good friendship, a great friendship. I mean, our friendship trumps everything. And we've been hanging out a long time as buddies. So it's nothing better than having a buddy that you can actually talk to and realize that person's giving you sound advice, and they're also a good business person for you, as well as a relationship that you're gonna have for the rest of your life. So I reached out to Jesse, and my wife was like, you need to call Jesse, because he's one of those guys that I call, when I need to like pick his brain and kind of, open up a little bit or think differently. So I called him as soon as I was done with the Carrot Odds thing. And it was just like, it was almost like he was expecting the phone call. Like, I was like, Jesse, this just happened. And he's like, oh my gosh, like, how can I be a part of that? He like kind of knew where I was going. So I was like, hey, Jesse, how's business right now? How are you navigating through this climate? What are you doing, to help your customers and continue to flourish and continue to do things, the way you think they need to be done for the Greenhouse Group? And Jesse kind of opened up. And Jesse, why don't you just tell us a little bit about how you've been handling things? But as you start to do that, talk about the video you just created. Talk about maybe the Lionel Richie story, like parody that you did. Like, Jesse does things that are unusual, but they connect people, and they pull people in, and people want to like get to know him and have a relationship with him, because he does these things that are amazing and marketable, frankly.
Well, it's a beautiful on-ramp. What I'll do first off is thank you, John, for creating this space. And you might have to change your name, man, because the heard not seen. I think we're putting a little zoom to that formulaically.
Thanks. Actually, a lot of people know me as the Spielberg of podcasting.
I was going to say, man, you're doppelgangers in Hollywood right now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I get it so much. I've had people buy me dinners because they insist I am.
Beautiful.
Thank you. I'll let you.
Yeah. I always get Brad Pitt.
Yeah, I can see it.
I'll save you out of that, bud. Jeremy Renner, maybe, if he had a bit of a drinking problem. Okay, so anyway, hey, the truth is, Chris, you said a wonderful thing, shoes too big to fill, but the one thing that so the spirit of what you said that I think might be applicable if someone's catching this and, getting past our BS banter here for a little bit and get into some meat and potatoes, is that you and I love a good conversation. And that's why we found each other, our orbits intersected each other. And when they did, we both recognized it right away. We love the long form. We love the depth. We love to flesh stuff out, and it lives inside the conversation. So when you did call me that day and you mentioned this, I mean, how timely, how applicable, because right there is resting on the shoulders of the zeitgeist of where everybody got just thrown into this, reluctantly, screaming, kicking the entire way of how the hell do we keep things rolling here when I'm now confined physically to my house and I can't go out and do the things that I relied on before. Like the old norm is dead, and it was dead in an instant. It wasn't like something that we got to off ramp towards. And so we instantly sparked up one of those beautiful conversations that we have, where we can pick up, we might not have talked in a month. We pick up like we just had breakfast that morning.
Yeah.
And we talked about how, well, this is basically your unique ability. It's the vision that you saw for stuff well before most. It's the reason why you gravitated towards this category. And you didn't just hole up shop, throw up a tent and park. You constantly pushed that curve of innovation to be able to see a few moves down the chessboard from where the game's already been playing. So you've helped me tremendously build my brand and our greenhouse group. We're, by the way, John, real estate consulting, mortgage planning right here in San Diego, and
nice.
Very fortunate enough to be top 1% categorically of what we do, even though we're tiny. Right. And we'll always be scrappy and startup mentality to a fault. But, Chris has been a huge reason why we've been able to not only hatch those evil schemes conceptually, but then also play them out in real time here. And I think a beautiful on-ramp to the conversation of what I'm hoping we're going to talk about, of how we can actually effectively make this shitty thing that's all happening to us actually pivot and be the greatest strength and opportunity that became of this.
That's great, because I'm feeling that a whole lot right now. I'm feeling like this is a tremendous opportunity for so many of us.
That's what I keep hearing from people that have been doing this for a while, is like, there's an opportunity to help. There's an opportunity that's out there. And those are the silver linings that I keep kind of slowing myself down, which is so important, right? Because if you're on flight or fight all the time, you're not slowing down to think of that creative thing. So Jesse, let's talk about what you just did for that marketing video. I think, would that be a cool segue?
Well, I think what it does is it depicts the incredible and tremendous opportunity that already exists, that people maybe didn't take seriously enough or have the vision of how they could apply it to their own situation and their own businesses, because they didn't need to, because status quo was working and it was good enough. And let's be honest, I mean, the economy has been pretty good.
Yeah.
For the last several years. We always want it to be better. We've always got our vision boards up and our goals for growth, but the tide's been pretty high for a while, and like Buffett says, you can always see who's wearing shorts once the tide rolls out. And I think that the digital space right now is going to be chief atop that list. So to the point, I'm a real estate guy, we got to come up with creative new ways to promote these properties when people can't physically come to the houses anymore, or at least when they do, it's in an essential category. It's mitigated, to say the least. Okay. And there's a whole category of people that don't even want to leave the house, let alone go buy, $500,000, $750,000 property right now in all this uncertainty. So got to be creative. And what an incredible opportunity to do just that, using the resources, what we call the harem of who's, right, that exists digitally out there in gig capacity. So case in point, and what Chris is talking about here, is we had a new property that we were promoting, and it's a unique one. It's not one that's going to sell itself, right? So in comes the marketer, and while we're shooting video, normal, typical video to showcase with the drones and all that stuff and shooting the photos, I slipped the videographer an extra couple $100. I said, hey, stay late. I got an idea. So while he was finishing up, I went in my car and I wrote out some lyrics. Right. And I've never done this before. This isn't like an old hat or an old trope that I fell into. I just got inspired in the moment, right? Creativity, opportunity, inspiration, like what we're talking about, got inspired in the moment to think differently, think outside the box, wrote out 4 or 5 different little hooks, and had a track that was spinning in my head. A popular sort of, what was it? It was Bad and Bougie, I think, right? By Migos. Okay. John, I'm sure that's on your playlist, right?
Yeah.
It will be.
Right. So went inside, shut the door, closed it off, wrote a couple deals, took me about, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes, went back inside, instantly imagined the entire shoot of what a music video would look like, right? Of course, with our mitigated resources, right? It's like a camera. I had one dude, I quickly arm locked him into being my my extra, right? And then off we went. And the videographer's like, okay, what now? Okay, shoot this, boom. What now? Shoot this, boom. So he cobbled together this string of an extra hour, some shoots. He sent me the raw footage. I got a VA in the Philippines who cuts up all my videos already. Sent it over to him raw file style. Say that 10 times twice. Then went on to Fiverr, found an artist, like a legitimate artist, okay, like with credentials, you know, hip hop, the whole deal. Sent him my lyrics. I don't know, I think I sent him like 50, 60 bucks or something, like, you know, like the definition of nominal. And in 2 hours, he knew exactly, got the vision. In 2 hours, he cut the track, put it on the instrumental I wanted, sent it back over to me. Took about a day and a half for the edit. In 2 days, soup to nuts, with a couple $100 bucks, I shot my own real estate first ever rap video, you know, and I'm not going to proclaim that it went viral, but for my circles, it was viral, right? You know, so like in our little deal here in San Diego, most folks saw it. Everybody was over the moon. And so that's the opportunity that we're talking about here, which was never on people's radars before because you didn't need it to be.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like now as we look to see opportunity, how we can actually take this, transmute it into something that we would have imagined that we never would have done, because now we have to do it. And then all the while, like, man, that was there. That was possible the whole time. Well, now what's possible?
Yeah. 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 And that's what I'm talking about, John. So like that thing that Jesse did was super inspiring. It took my wife and I out of our state. Right. So we did bath time routine. We did the dishes.
Whoa, Chris.
No, listen. We did the dishes. I throw on Jesse's video and like life was fun and charming and jovial for the 3-minute video. And I said, this guy just does things different. I said, play that again. But I honestly didn't know the history or know the details from what he just said. I had no idea that he did that so quickly for a couple $100 bucks. I honestly, because I'm out of the loop with hip hop, I thought it was Drake. I thought that Drake happened to do some song about real estate or about some home that he bought, and Jesse made it work with one of his properties, because most people aren't going to listen to the detail of the property or the detail of the song, the detail of the property, and try to match them up like a puzzle. I'm like, oh, wait a minute, that's not the same property. Because from just casually watching, because Jesse's dancing, he's got someone else going. I mean, it looked like a music video, so you're more entertained than trying to sync up the details. But the fact is the details match, and that's Jesse.
And I think that that's a key point too, because if you're just catching this, you don't have the context of the video. I could imagine that 99.9% of people are going to imagine me dancing like a jackass. Like,
well, Jesse, when we're done, send me the link to the video and I'll cut it into this.
Video on this.
Yeah, fair enough.
Let's play the video at the end of this, John.
Okay.
Put it out.
Fair enough. But my point to make, because I think it's a salient one, is this isn't me trying to branch out and come up with a side hustle. Like, it wasn't about me.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I know this might be a whole separate conversation we get into, which we might not have the depth to even tiptoe in right now. But just the concept that, you know, when you imagine, you know, video 1.0, it's the selfie, right? It's the look at me, look at me, look at me. And I think that if you can see this as a tool, almost as a utilitarian, you can imagine that it's possible for so much more. Yeah, I'm in the shot. Yeah, I'm trying to proctor the feel and the whole thing and kind of keep it moving. But what I'm actually doing is I'm showcasing what, Chris?
You're showcasing a property for a client.
Yeah, the potential of it, which is the whole hook of the craft.
Yeah.
So there are some subjects, and we are moving around, and there might be a little lip sync going on, but it ain't about us.
Yeah.
Right. You're actually you're a character in the video, is what you are.
Bingo. Yeah.
You're helping get the property out there. And you're actually getting a tour of the property. So you're looking at the views, you're looking at the rooms, you're actually doing a tour of the property, which once you start realizing that, and actually in my mind, I'm like, wait a minute, this is working. Like the details are working. That's what was really amazing. But Jesse pulls stuff off like this. So I'm like, I don't know, got to talk to him.
Yep. So one thing I wanted to say, Jesse, is that I think what you did is what I call, most people are like trying to think out the box, right? So I think what you did is actually created a new box. And I'm really encouraging people to go a little bit further than just thinking outside the box.
Well, and I think the opportunity and the reason why I took the time to bring it up is I want this to be helpful. I don't want this to be a testimonial about what this one guy did this one time on this one thing that I watched. Right. It's the idea that version 1.0 is entertainment, and version 2.0 is like edutainment.
Yep.
Right. Like, how are you using the medium of video, not to be whimsical, although that's fun. And Chris, you even mentioned the levity of how that found you guys while doing bath time. Was
for our kids.
Okay, good. Thank you. Okay, good. I just want to get that up.
That's an important clarification. Thank you. Yes.
Yes, good. Right. Is that it doesn't just have to be that, right? The idea of just thinking a move down the chessboard, again, to bring that metaphor back into awareness of how can you use video, how can you use it in a creative or entertaining way, but how can you still drive the narrative of the product and the message you're trying to get across through it.
Yeah. And, working with Jesse, that's the one thing that has actually motivated me and inspired me in my own business. He has a customer service component to help and to kind of nurture in a way along the way. Even we got our home with Jesse. When the home was done, there was 3 or 4 things that happened within the next 6 months that touched your heart. And I don't want to talk about him in detail because, I don't want to put him on the block, but my wife and I still, well, for example, we cooked Omaha steaks this weekend. How long has it been since we got in our home? He's like, this is for you to enjoy your new house. This is for you to enjoy your barbecue in your new backyard. Like he creates moments. And from the moment you walk into his facility, his office, and his wife has played a big part in this, his team has played a big part in this. It's an orchestrated thing to make you feel comfortable and to show you love and respect and to relax, because he wants you to be present so he can listen to you and your vision and what matters to you as a family, so then he can help you. And it's such a cool experience. I mean, first time I ever met with him to do real estate, and I'd been friends with him for 10 years, I didn't even want to leave. I'm like, I'm so relaxed right now and I feel so good. I'm sipping on tea. We're talking about what the next 5, 10, 15 years looks like in our life. It's therapeutic,
I appreciate that, Chris. And what came up for me, which is a beautiful tie back into how you approach your domain categorically, is we'll put a little ribbon on, maybe we'll just call this first chunk video, right? How to use video to leverage what it is that you're trying to do in a brand new world, in a brand new environment where the old things that got you there aren't going to take you, like what got you here is not what's going to get you there. Mm-hmm. Right? So it's like we relied so much on the physical deal. Okay. Right now, while we can't do that, the opportunity of reimagining how you can move the same needle, the same distance, but use digital. And one of the beauties of why you and I have worked so well together professionally for so long in so many different projects is that you got that. You understand intrinsically the vehicle of video, because video conveys the emotion of the nonverbal communication that you can't get through print or still. And you do that so well with your branding. You do that so well with even your website, even down to your graphic design. Everything is an emotionally driven conversation. It's about elegance, it's about excellence, and it's about efficiency. And I would even say effectiveness, even more so than efficiency. And I think that, as we look at this right now, if video is maybe not something that you're comfortable, it's not the comfy pillow that you can just say, yeah, man, roll it spontaneously, I'm on, right? Maybe if you're on the other end of that spectrum, just the entry level of saying, hey, let me do my first one this time. Because guess what? I can guarantee one thing's true for me and to anybody. John, I'm sure you'll hop on this train. My first video I ever did back in 2006 was abhorrent. Mm-hmm. Right?
Well, that's how podcasters start too. Podcasters, it's always terrible, the first one. But you just keep doing it. You do put it out. You just keep doing it. Right?
So maybe you're not going to shoot a music video tomorrow, but what can you do right now today to just get that party started? Because if you can work that in to what it is that you're doing, and I'm speaking just to the 101s right now, right? It's going to be a chasm leap, than where you are currently today. And then it's an incredible fulcrum to be able to, in a meaningful, efficient, cost-effective way, to deliver meaningful value also to your tribe of people in an ongoing capacity, right? And I'd love to pivot and maybe talk a little bit more about that, Chris. And actually, what do you do to coach your clients on using video moving forward? So maybe now let's move to the 201.
Yeah, I want to talk about video a little bit, and I also want to parlay that into what John does, because what John does is a huge thing for people right now, and we're seeing it all over the place, the Zoom thing and people doing their own podcasts and all that. One of the things that came up last week in a networking meeting with John was there was I don't know what kind of a doctor they were, but they were starting to focus more on nutrition. They felt like nutrition was their calling. They wanted it to be about nutrition. They want to make people heal through food. And the person was so stuck on what to do. And I said, why are you stuck? And they said, well, I'm not comfortable with this, the Zoom thing. I'm not comfortable. I'm used to having people come here and visit with me and sit down and write them a curriculum. And I said, well, why don't you, and they said, I know I need to do social media, but I don't know where to start. I said, why don't you each day pick up your phone, do a video, talk to the video, and say what you think your clients would get value from or need to hear. It can be 30 seconds, it can be a minute, and just start to do that. So that's their first quote unquote video. And that person started to do that, and people wanted to talk to them more and reached out, and it almost made it look like, oh my gosh, this person's more available than we realized, right? So they're waiting for the email to come in, they're waiting for the traditional phone call and all those things. You got to put yourself out there and be vulnerable and talk about what it is you think would be helpful to your clients. Or, one of the things that I'm actually going to be working on probably later in this week is I'm going to reach out to all my clients, and I'm going to just be doing free consultation services. And it's because I want them to be able to pick my brain and to be able to think through things creatively, to look for solutions on the things that they feel like they need to do. And I don't normally have the time to do that. But it's me throwing a bone out to them so they can talk to me and open up a little bit. And it could be 15 minutes, it could be a half hour or whatever. But I'm trying to get people to open up a little bit about what they think it is they're supposed to be doing. Like, what's your purpose? Let's clarify the purpose. What's the problem we're trying to solve? And let's think of a toe forward, a step forward. It doesn't have to be the finish line or the grand finale, like you're saying, Jesse. It doesn't have to be that music video, but you got to keep moving. A lot of people get so still and they kind of freeze in this environment, and it's about being inspired or helping each other navigate through it. I didn't really touch on the video thing as much, but I think that, obviously that's something that's super powerful, is to be able to connect through a video format, because you're able to kind of see and you can feel the emotion, you can touch on it. John, why don't you go a little bit into the podcasting arena, because I know you're seeing a lot of inbound leads and business and needs from that. In fact, we've been doing this for a couple of weeks now. We've never done this before because of this whole situation we're going through.
Yeah. So there's a lot I could talk about, but I think the thing that's really great about podcasting is, it's like I have the URL, heard, not seen, us. So I've had a lot of people go, you mean I can actually do a podcast in my pajamas? Absolutely. So, what I encourage people to do is just, once again, start. And typically what I see is that people just, they get a little overwhelmed. They keep putting off starting a podcast because it seems really complicated and expensive. And the thing about it is it's very, very simple. And it's a place where people can actually be themselves. Like I loved at the top of this, Jesse, when you were talking about having, quote, a real conversation with Chris that has a lot more depth than just talking about the weather. So I'm not bringing anybody into my studio right now, but I am having conversations remotely. And what I really love and appreciate about what I do for others is it's really just about holding safe space. So, and being a really good interview, you can ask some questions that actually, you can ask a question that will take somebody down into themselves and really express who they really are and what their purpose really is. And it breaks down a whole lot of barriers just in an auditory format between you and the person that might be listening. In other words, it creates rapport. And I really like video a lot. I've been doing, of course, more and more video with Zoom and stuff, but I keep going back to audio podcasting because it's very intimate. It's very one-on-one. So, and I'm starting to see people, I did a presentation for the Carlsbad Chamber of Commerce. I'm actually going to take the video and clean it up a little bit before it gets posted there, because I really want to give people a way to start listening to podcasts initially. So I unplugged my cable about 15 years ago when I discovered podcasting. And I can say for myself, I've created the best content in the world. I mean, there's like 900,000 podcasts out there. There's only about 256,000 that are actually active. But, I listen to the people like Sam Harris. He has a podcast called Making Sense. Highly recommend people listen to it because he's a critical thinker, which most Americans, quite frankly, don't really have that skill set. So people get to experience what that's like when he's interviewing somebody that is at the top of their field, and whether it's about neurology or what's going on politically or socially or just anything at all. So I feel like when I'm listening to a podcast, and you as somebody that might want to start a podcast are going to feel the same way, where I just feel like I am just like a bug on the wall or a fly on the wall, listening to a conversation someone's having with another person. It's like overhearing somebody's intimate depth or thoughts. And of course, there's the whole business aspect. There's no better way to actually gain brand authority, through everything we do. But in a podcast, it's like your voice can be your brand. We're a part of it. So I'm just really here to help people express themselves and make it as simple as possible without having to take off their pajamas.
So John, maybe you can kind of elaborate just a little bit from a business or a branding standpoint, how do you approach, whether it's a solopreneur or an entrepreneur, like a sole proprietor, or maybe a small agency like mine, or a larger company, how do you approach them and say, hey, if you want to start to promote your services and what you do and how you help and what value you bring to the world through your company, like how do you approach them on putting that into like a series or a podcast? How do you approach them on that?
Well, I typically take them through a process of story branding.
Okay.
So it's like Chris, I know you're familiar with actually sitting down with somebody with a new client and actually trying to wrap your head and them in terms of developing a brand.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the first thing. So, it's asking first question I always ask, or people ask me the first question, what microphone should I get? And that is like at the end of the whole process. Depending on, are you going to be having a co-host? You're going to be solo? You're going to be doing interviews? And now it's like, you're going to have a studio? Probably not. That could all change but I'll talk to them and I'll get a sense and a feeling for who they are. And then I'll take them through this process of really understanding what value they have, and specifically who is their tribe, their targets, whatever you want to call it. So as an example, if you're wanting to do a podcast for CEOs, what are you going to probably talk about? Or what is your show going to be around? Jesse might know, but I'll just tell you, CEOs golf. So you have to you guys know social media enough to know that you have to find out where your people are hanging out. So that's probably what you're going to design a show around. But the most important thing is don't design the show or what you're going to be doing based on just that. But what's your passion? So I produce a podcast for a really well-known attorney, and her thing is dogs. She has 2 or 3 of them. And that's her kids. She doesn't have any human kids, but those are her kids. So it's like I've been encouraging her to talk about the dogs, not all the time, but it's the dogs in her home studio will start barking and she's like, oh, we got to stop the recording. I go, no, bring them into the show. Bring them into the show and let people know that you're a real person. You've got dogs and your dogs act up and bark and just like everybody else, but they are a part of your family.
Do you help come up with the content for the shows, or do you just guide it? How hands-on are you with the content?
Well, there's lots of different directions to go in terms of the content. lot of times we're not scripting anything because then it sounds real canned.
Yeah.
So I kind of take Jesse's approach. I have, it's like I help them get an idea and then just start bullet points. So generally what we'll do is we'll come up with a kind of a schedule or an outline, just like you would for posting social media, a marketing calendar, and hit topics and topics and topics. And then we'll start doing some bullets about what needs to be talked about. Who do we want to interview? Or what do we want to generate, So the length of the show makes no difference whatsoever. Joe Rogan's show, number one, you listen to Joe?
Yeah.
Jesse? Yeah, most people do. It's like what, 2-3 hours, right? And then there's Grammar Girl, really, really popular. When she started, she was doing 5-minute episodes and she got really well known. 5 minutes on some grammar tip. So it makes no difference the length. You just make the content great. So, so in terms of brand story development and then, scheduling out as far as possible. And the most important thing is to be consistent. So if you've got like, I recommend people spend 80% of their time in developing their content and 20%, including recording and stuff, and 20% on doing any kind of marketing.
Yeah. So right now, that's kind of my company we've been totally focusing on our clients, anyone that can do a consultation or do anything virtually still for the company. If you're selling a product, if you're selling a purse or you're selling something like that, like that's e-commerce. That's like, okay, you found us, now purchase the thing. But if you're consulting and you need that human interaction, we're trying to promote everyone through video and through tele. Like you either do a phone call or you do a video. And what we're finding is a lot of the medical companies, the insurances are allowing them to bill just like they would if they were to come to their office for some of this stuff. And I don't know the details on that, but this is what I've been told by my clients that are doing very well with it. Jesse, how are you continuing to do and move transactions right now for yourself? Like if someone came to you today and was like, hey, I want to put this house on the market, walk me through just briefly, like how does that transaction work?
Yeah, I'd love to. I had a 201 on that I'd love to share, but I think if I might just sort of build on what John shared there.
Yeah.
I love his approach of coming at it from how to tell the story. Lord knows there's been many wonderful books written contemporarily about, the whole concept of marketing through storytelling. So I want to double, triple, quadruple check that behind John's name there.
Yeah, please do.
And by the way, wouldn't that be a cool Zoom adaptation for the future where like any one of the people could like give little thumbs up, like, duk, 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 like good point, like, duk, 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 that was a good point, duk, duk,
Hey, doesn't it have that?
Well, okay, on the bottom right of your screen are reactions.
Oh, you're kidding.
No, watch. I'll do one. I'm trying here. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, but it's a one time though, right?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, okay. All right. Now I can't get the damn thing off my deal. Anyway, point back is
it'll go away.
Oh, okay, cool. So it does go away. Look at that, dude. That's some real time stuff right there. Cool. Glad I've opened my big trap.
We could just do this, Jesse and Chris.
Yeah. A little more disrupting. I think that the opportunity right now is, trust, right? Trust is the new currency. And I think if I could go even a step further, and it is perfect architecture for this conversation of living in the digital world, right? Because that's also a hearkening back to why business is done so often face-to-face, right? Is because it's about building trust, right? So in this new world, how do we pivot? How do we still have that same level of trust? And I think that if trust is the new currency, then the way it's traded is through insight. I think insight is where we're heading to now, which is also why the three of us love this long form. It's putting language to the long form, right? And you could almost kind of think of it like, I love the architecture of like a late night talk show host, right? Like, Seth Meyers or whatever, right? He's got a Hollywood starlet up there and they're pitching a movie. It's like, they've got 3.5 minutes, maybe 5.
Yep.
You're in story. you're not in insight. You're in story in that moment. You're just regurgitating pre-rehearsed stories of yourself, of the movie. It's a big pitch. And I think that the great opportunity, back again, a recurring theme for our conversation today organically, the opportunity here that Joe Rogan luckily picked up on as being a leader in, and John, you too, in this long form podcast capacity, is once you get past the 15 minutes, you start getting into insight. Mm-hmm. In that long form dimension. Chris, this is why you and I have, we've been fast friends here on this, is because we can't wait to get past the 15 minutes of the small talk BS so we can get to the insight. Because insight is where that moment goes, where you're like, oh, right, something happens.
So,
and it's like,
Jesse, could I demonstrate it?
Yeah.
With you?
Sure.
So think of one moment in your life that was totally defining, a defining moment. Got it? What was it?
I don't know why, but what came up for me was when I lost my mom at 14. So I guess
Wow.
I guess that was one of the most defining.
Something changed for you?
Yeah, instantly.
Yeah.
Right. Forever. Right. And so there is an incredible opportunity to create really valuable content. So John, to your point, content first, 80% of it's content. I don't know about you. I don't know if it's true for anybody who might pick this up, after we hit the end button here and put this out to wherever we do, but it's hard to sit down. For me, I'm talking personally, to sit down and just crank out content, right?
Yeah. Like I can't do that.
Right, like at a keyboard by myself and
Nope.
And by the way, that's another point, is that when I'm writing, it's a different part of my brain than when I'm talking. When I'm talking, it's a completely different consciousness. It's a completely different reality than when I'm writing. It might as well be two separate halves of the same person.
Yes.
And what I found to be incredibly true is, I've been trying to record as much as I possibly can for as long as, the democratization of these tools has been out there. So John, you mentioned you've been doing this since 2005. I want to say we started our first podcast in 2006, right behind you. Immediately went into like video series, through YouTube. And once that came online, and the goal has just been to record as many things as possible. Not because I expect anybody other than our moms to ever watch or listen to them.
That's exactly right.
But because I know that when it's recording, I'm on. When the stakes are high, I'm on. Neurons are firing at a really high, rapid rate. And I know that the best content's going to come out when I know we're recording. It's a hack. Yep. I wish it weren't the case, but it's just true. And so, so in this capacity right now, what we're doing is we're creating content.
Yeah.
And so it's like maximum oral output. It's the old Moo method, like my buddy Dean Jackson says, the multiplier of oral output, because here's our content. And then the beauty, to harken back to the rap video trope earlier, is that we can take this, we can throw it up on, Otter AI or Trent or whatever. It automatically transcribes it. Then we can throw it over to a VA and they can cut it up and they can pull out good, could be 2 or 3 blog posts right there. I already wrote the content. And in a really cost-effective manner, I can have it promulgated out. We're recording a video right now. Now we can actually go and make this a video. We can make this a 4 or 5 segment video. We can have 4 or 5 days of front stage content, visually appealing posts that go out to our social media channels. We could strip the audio and do podcast series. We can have blog posts, like just by having a conversation.
Yeah, I know. And so, and that's
a time where that was possible.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what I plan on doing with this episode. And the other one we do is like strip out it's going to go on my, What Has My Attention podcast. So it's seriously, you have my attention. This has my attention. This is huge.
Yeah. This is
so
awesome.
Yeah. You're a little fired up, Jesse.
Well, I mean, the truth is, I don't want to go on an op-ed here, but, I'm emotional. I'm a human being, just like everybody else. Chris, you and I were BSing about this earlier. I had to find my own oxygen mask to put on first before I could give it to anybody. Once the kids got kicked out of school and we were in the home deal and everybody would die and the economy was screwed. Like, I had to find my own true north on that first. And then as soon as I got there, I instantly realized that I'm perfectly equipped for this. Like, this is the greatest thing that could happen for me because I was in cruise control, John. I wasn't utilizing my creative juices. Things were too easy for way too long. I'd wake up, we'd get a couple buyers, we'd get a couple sellers, we'd close them, we'd get a check, and the dance continued on to the same song. You know, so nobody wishes for this on anybody. It's going to be terrible. We're going to lose a lot of people that we loved. It's going to be disrupting. A lot of us have already lost a gigantic portion of our, you know, assets, and the housing market's going to get hit. All that stuff's true. You know, water's wet, rocks are hard. That's what's true. But at the same time, there's going to be an amazing shift of wealth that's going to get transferred for this. The people who are resilient, the leaders, the people who are disciplined and persistent, they're going to arise out of this like embers out of the ash or the phoenix or whatever deal you want to do. And we're in a we're perfectly positioned, the three of us at least, and hopefully anybody listening to this, to be able to take full advantage of the pivot because we've been doing this for the last 10 or 15 years already.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah, really well said. Speaking of pivot, one of my favorite podcasts is Kara Swisher and Scott Galloway's Pivot, P-I-V-O-T. Do you listen to podcasts much, Jesse? He just froze up. We got a freeze going on. So should we wind this up?
However you want to wrap it up, cool. But I think it would be so cool when we post this at the end of it to have just video.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes. You know that I've been looking for a home over here in Lakeside? Mm-hmm. You know that I've been looking for a home in the mountains?
Yes.
What's got you so excited about this place?
Potential, 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 potential. It's got potential. The whole place got potential. Potential, 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 potential. You got potential. Can you see the potential? 19 rooms, 6 bedrooms, 4 kitchens, 5 bathrooms, 2 floors, separate unit, ADU. Man, this home, do it. Potential, 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 potential. The view got potential. The mountains essential. Potential, 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 potential. 2 autonomous units. It's got rental potential. Potential, 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 potential. It's got potential, yeah. The whole place got potential. Potential, 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 potential. Woo.
Yeah. So, what'd you think, man?
Thanks for showing me the house. I really like it. I can't put my finger on it.
Yeah.
But I think it's got